This morning I finished my first electronic dance music song on a Mac. And while this might not seem like a big deal, it has taken me almost 20 years to finish this. Why 20 years, you ask? Because every time I've sat down in the past, I've become so frustrated with the digital audio workstation applications that I just eventually called it quits. Today we discuss what I did to go from complete frustration of the complexity to actually making music. And hopefully I can help some of you that have been struggling with the same thing. This is an amazing time to be alive. With a laptop and a few $100s spent on a digital audio workstation or DAW, you have thousands of sounds, effects, and software instruments to produce studio quality tracks. I remember 20 years ago I purchased a rack-mounted EQ for $300. Today in Logic, the application I use, you get 7 EQs out of the box and 62 other effects for the cost of the software, which is $200. But as the features grow, so does the complexity, so it is more important than ever to have a clear plan to become proficient in these complicated tools. Once I commit to a goal, I'm usually successful, and this time I was committed. I sat down and put a 4-step plan to go from confusion to creation. First step I took was to pick a digital audio workstation, or DAW. There's many tools out there, including Logic, Ableton, FL Studio, Cubase, Studio One, and many others. The one I decided to pick was Logic. I had just switched over to Final Cut Pro. I purchased a new Mac, and for $200, Logic is exceptional value. And while the number of choices might be daunting, the fact is they all make great music. And when I decided on Logic, I did quite a bit of research to make sure it would work for me, because I knew the amount of hours that I put into it would make it really difficult for me to switch down the road and do it all over again. The second step I took was put together a formal learning plan. The first step of that plan was to do some video training through LinkedIn Learning. I took the Logic Pro Essentials training and producing electronic music in Logic Pro. After I went through those 2 basic classes, I broke down the rest of my weeks by a specific instrument or effect. For example, one week would be synthesizers, the next week might be samplers, the next week might be EQs, compression, and so on. And every time I went through each one of those, I made sure that I learned it from start to finish and knew what every button did. There's a ton of these great resources on YouTube, and I also used Udemy as well. On YouTube, Music Tech Help Guy has a ton of videos and covers pretty much every instrument, effect, and anything you can do in Logic. It's fantastic. But there's also other people that focus on other digital audio workstations. So find a channel that has a lot of good content or float around, and you can really answer most of your questions on YouTube. The other classes I watched on YouTube was several master classes where you take somebody who really knows what they're doing and takes you through the whole process. One master class that was awesome was the GuildHall School of Music and Drama. There's 2 of them there. One goes through a regular song, the other one goes through the creation of a soundtrack for a video from start to finish. Both of them are spot on. The third step in my process was to learn a little bit about music theory. And the great thing about these digital audio workstations is you can use the keyboard of your computer to create great music with zero experience. But a little bit of knowledge can go a long way to save you a lot of time. Scales, chords, melodies, and other basic theory helped me understand some of the parameters that made my producing more efficient. It determined ahead of time what notes should sound good together and how to better match samples and clips to other scales when needed. I was always a little scared of music theory and looked at it as this very complicated thing, which it is, but some of the basics are pretty easy to learn and can help get you around a keyboard and scales and really make you creating better music in less time. There's several great places on the web to find videos about basic music theory for electronic music producers. One person is Tomas George. He has a YouTube introduction video that's actually very good. I also watch his Udemy video that's a lot more in depth. Those 2 things helped me learn a lot about music theory. The 4th step for me was continuous use and learning. I realized I really had to use this software a lot to get it to sink into my brain. A good example of continuous learning is LinkedIn Learning has a series of videos for Logic that really keeps you up to date as the new versions come out. That's the one thing with digital audio workstation software. It's very complicated, but it keeps getting more and more complicated every day with more features, more machine learning and things like that, so you really need to stay on top of it. Using these steps that I just went through, I finally got to a place where I could start making music without thinking about how to do every little thing. And while I think it's going to take me a long time to make respectable and decent tracks, I'm no longer afraid when I open up the application, see all the buttons and sliders. I actually know what to do now, and that is awesome. Please comment below and let me know what tools, tricks, videos you've used to help get yourself up to speed with a digital audio workstation and making music. I think any ideas of different things people have been doing would be awesome. And please subscribe to support the channel, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.